common application. So my name is Christopher Lucan Seidel. I'm the assistant director at College Depot. College Depot, for those of you who don't know, is a free full-service college access center and a program of Phoenix Public Library. So our home, our in-person home, is at Burton Bar Central Library, which is on McDowell and Central Avenue. Of course, the library system is, the buildings are closed at this point, but College Depot is still very, very much active and able to assist you. So the number one, one of the main services that we provide, of course, are workshops. So as I was telling a student earlier, we do have free virtual FAFSA workshops every Saturday every Saturday in October. If you are interested, I'm going to type in the chat. If you're interested in attending one of those virtual FAFSA completion workshops, then you can go ahead and click on that link. Of course, maybe not do it right now so that it doesn't take you out of this. But if you click on that link, it'll show you the dates and the times, and then there'll be a link to register as well. So the next one is this Saturday at 1 o'clock. We also in November will have workshops on scholarships. So basically, we're titling it, it's like the anatomy of a scholarship. So basically, what are scholarships? What do scholarship providers look for? And then what are some strategies that you can use to be the strongest applicant, or to present a strong application for your scholarships, for the scholarships you're applying to, as well as strategies for applying. So we all know that there are millions of dollars in scholarships out there, tons, like thousands of different scholarship opportunities, but like, what's a process? You clearly can't apply for all of them. So what is a good strategy for finding and applying for those scholarships? So that'll be in November, every Saturday in November. It's also, if you go to that link, tiny.cc/CD events, it'll take you to our events page, and you can see those and sign up. Finally, we're partnering with Phoenix Union High School District to host virtual workshops every Wednesday in October, starting next week. So the 14th through November 4th, on applying for highly selective colleges. So if you're in this workshop and you're planning on filling out the Common App, or you've already started, or maybe you already have filled it out, then that usually is an indicator that you're looking at highly selective schools. So these workshops, each one is a little bit different. The first one, next Wednesday, is going to talk about the financial aid process for most highly selective schools. It is different than if you're, going to a community college here or in-state university. So so it's a little bit different. So that's what the initial workshop is going to talk about, what that financial aid process is. Additionally, representatives from different universities and schools throughout, different universities and schools that offer financial aid packages to students who qualify, who cover full financial needs. Sorry, I'm messing this up. Sorry, to the point, representatives from these schools will also be there presenting on their schools, their programs, and what they look for in applicants and what that application process is, as well as fielding questions and comments. So every Wednesday, again, if you go to events, tiny.cc/C events, you can see all of those events that we have coming up in the next 2 months right there. Get more information and register. And each Wednesday is going to have different representatives from different schools. So you are encouraged to attend all of them if you can. Also, if you go to our Facebook page, it's just a great thing to do, to go and like and follow us there. But also, if you look at our events for the highly selective colleges, each date and time, you'll see an agenda of which schools will be presenting for each of the different sessions throughout Wednesday, or throughout the next 4 weeks. So it looks like we have a question already. How do I access the recording for this workshop? So after it processes, after we finish, then we're going to upload it to YouTube, and we'll share out the link with we'll share out the link if you registered for the event, we'll share it out with everybody who registered, and then also we'll share it out with other students as well. So yeah, if you didn't register and you just got the link to join, then email college.depot@phoenix.gov. If you email that and just say, hey, can I get the link for the Common App session, then we'll send it to you as well. Okay, great. So again, my name is Christopher Lucan Seidel. I'm the Assistant Director at College Depot. And I am here. I'm just here to introduce everybody and kind of talk about the flow. We also have our presenter, who is Rosie Eden, as well as Diana Mateer, who is our financial aid manager and supreme expert on all things related to highly selective schools as well. So they're going to be, Rosie is going to be doing the presentation. Just a few little logistics. If you have questions or comments or need clarification on anything, you can just type it right there in the chat. If you don't see the chat, it's like a little, you have to click on the feature that it looks like a little chat box. If you click on that, it'll pop up. You can also unmute yourself if requested to voice your question. So, okay, cool. Well, we'll go ahead and get forward. Rosie will be your presenter, and she'll take it away from here.
Yeah, thank you. So hi, everyone. My name is Rosie. I graduated high school last year, so I was part of the class of 2020. And then this year, I'm joining Princeton for the class of 2025. So I'm currently taking a gap year from school just because of the COVID situation. So I've recently, been in the process of college applications, filling out the Common App. So I have some knowledge in that sense, but I'll get started. If the PowerPoint wants to work, sometimes it does this. Okay, oops, okay, it just skipped like a bunch of slides. Okay, so the first questions you should ask yourself before even jumping into your college applications is sort of building your college list and figuring out where you want to apply. So I listed some factors that you can kind of take into consideration when you are building your school list. Things like location, if you want to go really far from home versus somewhat close to home. School size, if you want to go to a really big school or a small school or a medium-sized school. Cost is super important too, and then the other side of that is scholarship offerings, especially with how expensive college is nowadays. If schools have good scholarships to apply for, that's something you could be looking into. And then program, major, academic challenge, course offerings. Look at if the schools you're interested in have good programs for the things you want to study. And then these are some I didn't think about actually right until I had to choose where I was going to college, but student community and housing are also super important factors if you want to live on campus for all 4 years versus if you want to be able to get an apartment or if you wanted to live in fraternity or sorority housing. Those are all things to consider. And then, athletic and extracurriculars, if schools have good sports teams, if you want to, if you could see yourself going to the basketball games with friends, that's also something to keep in mind. And then this one was one of the most important to me, but student to faculty ratio, the average class size, which kind of goes along with size. But these are just some things so you can think about when you're still picking at some schools to apply to. So once you have a little list of schools that you started to look at, then you have to start forming your application plan. The first step is determining your time frame. So some schools do rolling admissions, which is more admissions on a first come, first serve basis. Those are the schools that you're going to want to be getting your applications to really early. And then kind of in addition to that, there are different schools may offer different application plans. The most common ones are early action, early decision, and then regular decision. So if you have your list of schools and there's one that you absolutely love, that it would be your first choice no matter where else you got in, and financially it worked really well for you, that might be a school that you would want to consider going early decision to, which is a binding decision, and you're basically agreeing that if you get accepted, you would go. Early action is a little bit different. It's not binding, but you're still getting your application in early. So if you have schools that you're planning on applying early to, knowing that and making up your plan to get those applications in first will be really helpful. In addition to like your time frame, you also want to achieve a good balance between the selectivity of the schools that you're applying to. Schools can typically be like categorized into 3 different categories, like your likely schools, your target schools, and then your reach schools. And I would say any school with an acceptance rate under 25%, even if you fit pretty well into their like mid 50% ranges on their SATs or their GPAs, just to consider those as a reach school, because it's really hard to get into schools with acceptance rates that low. And if you do have some reach schools, make sure to balance them out with some likely schools and some target schools, and make sure your college list isn't leaning one way or the other. It's really important to have a good balance. Sometimes my thing likes to be slow, so we can wait for a second. Okay, I don't know why it skips through so much. Okay. So after that, after you have your general schools, and you kind of have your plan of which ones you want to apply to early, then you begin to start managing your applications. So then you look into all of the requirements that each school asks you to do. And this is where you can see if a school accepts the common or coalition application, or sometimes schools will have their own application, which are just like a little bit more work. And then here you would also determine how many rec letters your schools want from you, and then make sure to ask your teachers for those letters. Some schools will want you to send in your official score reports for your SATs or your ACTs, and then some schools are okay with you self-reporting. So make sure you know which schools ask for what. This I think is super helpful. If you're applying to a lot of schools, most of the time you'll have a lot of supplemental essays to write, and that's probably one of the most consuming parts of the application process. So it's a good idea to make either a Word document or a Google document with all of the schools that you're looking at, their supplemental prompts. And sometimes you can see if certain schools have very similar prompts. I remember there was one where 2 of my schools asked what's your favorite word and why. So those are really good ways to maximize the efficiency of how many essays you're writing. And then the last step of that is to set deadlines for yourself. The deadlines for applications creep up super fast, especially if you're planning on applying early anywhere. So make sure to prioritize the schools that you're applying to earlier. And that's kind of the gist of getting your list together. So once you have your school list, now we can kind of talk about the Common App. So essentially what the Common App is it's just one application that you can send to multiple colleges. It's really good in that sense because it helps people apply to more schools. And then there are 7 main parts to it, which we'll go over all of them. And I have them listed here: profile, family, education, testing, activities, writing, and then courses and grades. Most of the parts are pretty straightforward, which we'll get into. The 2 that I have highlighted, activities and writing, those are probably the most time-consuming parts of the Common App, and also some of the most important parts of the Common App, so we'll spend a little bit of time going over those. So starting with the profile section of the Common App is just where you supply some basic information about yourself. So some things are your name, your sex, your birthday, address, demographics, citizenship, what languages you speak. It's just good information for the college to have. It's pretty straightforward. I would say the most important thing is just be honest. Just be honest. There's not much you really need to worry about there. And then family is kind of similar, but it's just asking questions about your family. which will include most of the time just your parents and siblings. It will ask if any of your siblings are in college or like what colleges your parents went to, if your parents attended college. And this information can be important if some schools do like legacy, which is some schools, not like all of them. If you had a parent that went to that college, it might help your chances of getting in. So this is the part of the Common App where they would look at that. Education is just information about your schooling. So that includes the high schools you went to. You know, if you've taken any college courses for credit, you would record it there. Not all colleges will accept college credits from other schools, but you know, you still put it on your Common App and then the schools will deal with it. Class size, class ranking, GPA. My school didn't do class ranking, so I didn't have to put anything for there. And then if you're planning or if you want to go to like med school or law school or further education, you would also list that here. And then the education section also includes an honors section where you can list up to 5 honors or awards that you've received. Don't feel like you have to have 5, but if you, like for example, if in your freshman year you won a spelling bee, like this would be a place where you would put that. And these are mostly supposed to be academic honors. So that's where on the Common App you would place those. My thing's being a little slow, so okay, here we go. I don't know why it skips so many. Okay, and then that brings us to testing. The testing section of your Common App is where you self-report your standardized test scores. So these will be like your SATs, ACTs, SAT2s, which are your subject tests, and your AP exams. The Common App allows you to super score your standardized tests. So what that means is like the SAT, for example, it has a reading and writing section and then a math section. So if I took the test one day and got really high in reading and writing and like kind of low in math, and then I resat the test and had it kind of the opposite where I got a really good math score but not the best reading and writing, you can take your highest reading and writing and your highest math and put those two together, which is super helpful. Also, for like AP exams, there's no, like you're not required to put your AP scores if you like didn't think you did too well on one of your APs, you don't have to include that. But if you did do well, you should certainly include it. In addition to that, some schools might require that you send your official score report instead of just self-reporting. So for those schools, you'll have to do that as well. But if a school allows you to self-report, it's probably better since you don't have to pay to send the score to the school. And then the other part to that is, especially now because of COVID, a lot more schools are going test optional. So they don't require you to send your scores. Sometimes they'll like just let you have the choice. And it's up to your discretion if you want to report your score or not. If your score is like within their range or above it, it would probably be a good idea to report it anyway. And then if it's something you're proud of too. And then if you have a score that might be a little lower for the school, it's best just to probably choose not to include it and then just do it that way. Yeah, it's going to be taking a second to load. Okay. Oops. Okay. So then that brings us to the activity section. This part's a little bit longer, but the activity section is a place where you can list up to 10 extracurricular activities that you do. And what's considered an extracurricular activity can really be anything you do outside of school. So I think typically we like to think of extracurriculars as like yearbook club or something like that. But some other examples are like if you work a job, or if you take care, like if you have younger siblings at home and both of your parents work, and so part of your job is to, you know, take care of your siblings, you can list those as activities on your list. And the format of the activities section it looks like this. So there's a section where you give like your position and your like the description of your position, which is just 50 characters. And then there's a section under it that's a description of like what you do in the activity, and that's 150 characters. I like to think of the description of the position as just like the title of the activity. I have an example later on, so we can go over that too. And then in addition to that, like formatting, there also is a little drop-down menu you can choose where you categorize each activity into one of the activity types. These are just some examples that the Common App has, like athletics, community service, internship. They have like paid work, volunteer work. So each one of those you'll tag it. And then if it doesn't quite fit into any of theirs, there's also an like other category. So then in addition to being asked like to name it and describe what you did, you also have to provide what grades you were in when you participated in it, how many hours a week you spend doing the activity, and then how many weeks a year. This is like, sometimes this is pretty hard to calculate, especially if it's something that's like on and off. Like sports seasons, for example, probably aren't going throughout the whole year. And then something to like really be careful for here is sometimes either by like making a mistake in your math, or if people like embellish them a little bit, sometimes the hours don't add up. I've seen things where like, it's like, okay, if you go to school for 7 hours a day and you sleep for 8 hours a day, like you can't really be doing extracurriculars for like 12 hours a day. So make sure to double check that section and just see that it all like makes sense mathematically, because it's kind of tricky to calculate. And then another thing too is you have an option to check a box if you're interested in continuing that activity in college, which is helpful to admissions officers, because let's say a student is like nationally ranked in like speech and debate or something, and they're like really good at speech and debate, and that student checks that they want to do speech and debate in college. That to an admissions officer might make them think, wow, we want them to come join our speech and debate team. So if you are interested in continuing any of your activities, absolutely like feel free to go and check that box. And if not, it doesn't matter either. So I gave an example. This was one of my activities from my Common App last year, just to like let you have a little bit of a feel for the strange writing process of it. So for the position/leadership, I just wrote Education Committee, Governor's Youth Commission, and then description of the activity, selected for statewide commission under GovDucey, promoting civics education and youth projects, organized Battle of the Books with local libraries. A couple things to note about that description. I think the first thing that sticks out is it's not like complete sentences. That's how you write. I like to think of them as bullet points, because you have such a limited amount of characters to write for your activities. You don't need to worry about being like, I was selected for, just, you can kind of take out the subject and think of it as bullet points. On the other side, it's all written in present tense except for the first sentence. If something was like a one and done thing, you can use past tense. But most of the time when you're describing the things you do in the activity, use present tense. And then the last little part of that is here you can see like I wrote GovDucey, which is short for governor. And in the top, I actually wrote out the word governor, because 150 characters like really isn't that many. You'll probably have to rework it a bunch, and then abbreviate some things. Just be as efficient as possible as you can with your characters. Like there were some activities that I had to rework like 4 or 5 times, just trying to find the best way to like say what I wanted to say. But that's kind of what it looks like. It looks a little weird, but that's how it works. So once you kind of write out all of your activities, you want to order them from most important to least important. So you want the first things the admissions officers to see to be the things that you're probably like the most involved with. And I put together some questions that I kind of asked myself to order when I was ordering my activities list. that's really helpful for figuring out what you want in what order. So things like to consider are how much time you spend in the activity each week, and then how many weeks you do it in a year. If it's something that, you know, you only do like 1 hour every week versus an activity that maybe like every day you're doing like 2 hours or 1 hour, you should prioritize the thing you're spending more of your time doing. Another part of that is how many years of high school have you done that activity? So if from freshman to senior year, you were super involved in this one club, that's probably more important than a sport that you were forced to do freshman year and then you forgot about like sophomore year and then your mom made you pick it back up in junior year, something like that. What is the reach of this activity? So something like, I think we were talking about like yearbook club, for example, something that's just in your school is probably not going to be as high on your list as maybe like speech and debate, where you do like a state thing, or like if you're on a sports team, if you like won your state tournament, just like keeping those things in mind. And then like even if it's national or international, those are going to be higher. And don't feel like you need to have national or international activities on your list, but if you do, definitely those probably take some more priority. And then the last part is, do you have a leadership position in the activity? Colleges really like to see that you have taken some leadership, especially if it's an activity that you've done for a long time. So like that could be the difference between someone who did yearbook club for all 4 years and like just took pictures versus someone who did yearbook club and then your junior year you were like editor in chief and then senior year you were president, something like that. So all of those are really important and to take into account when you're ordering your activities. Okay, and then this is the Common App essay is my favorite part about the Common App. It's probably like one of the most time-consuming parts, and also I think one of the most important parts. Your Common App essay is really the place for your voice to shine through on your application. I think it's really easy to forget that admissions officers are human, and we spend so much time like focusing on our like every aspect of our application, and we like took like standardized tests to get scores that we want, or like, you know, did well in the classes that we wanted to do well in. But to an admissions officer who's reading like thousands of these every week, a really good like test score, a really good GPA doesn't really stick out as much more, because I think we all have like been in a place where you're reading a lot of like information and it all kind of like flows together and you don't really remember much. So your Common App essay is really the only place you get to like I don't know, dazzle someone or really like let them know who you are in your own words. Most schools will have you write additional essays called supplemental essays in addition to your Common App. But the Common App is really like one broad essay that you're going to send to all of those schools that accept it. And I think even on the Common App, it's called the personal statement. So it's really about getting to know you. It has a 650 word limit, and then it has all of these open-ended prompts for you to choose from. And then if it doesn't quite fit like one of the prompts, they also have just like an open-ended prompt that's like right about anything. So don't worry about fitting to a prompt as much as communicating some interesting part about who you are. Then we have choosing what to write your Common App about. In my opinion, the process of picking what you want to write your essay about is actually so much harder than the like writing process. Some tips for making that decision about what you want to write about is if you reflect on the things that are most important to you, and then even further than that, like the unique experiences that make you who you are. It's a lot of self-reflection. You want to ask yourself, like, what made me who I am? And I think like a typical rule of thumb for your Common App essay too is if you were to drop it like on the floor of your school, would the person who picked it up know that it was yours? Kind of in the same vein as that, talk about something that isn't reflected in different parts of your application. 650 words may seem like a lot, but they really go by fast. And I kind of like to think of every word as like an opportunity to say something about yourself. So if you, I don't know, like avoid focusing on your academics, your extracurriculars, or anything that might come up in your letters of recommendation. Anything that you repeat is just like a wasted opportunity to really say something unique about who you are. And you really want to use this to show them something that they won't see somewhere else on your application. So once you kind of figure out what you want to write about, if you have an experience, a story, or like a personal philosophy that is just like integral to like making you into who you are, now you're like on the steps to writing it. Some important things are like, first, you really want to grab their attention. The Common App essay is not like a school essay that you write where you have to like analyze a text or something. It's very much so more a creative writing process. Like I said, admissions officers are humans, and we all like hearing like good stories. So typically, I really enjoy introducing a Common App essay with like some, like if you have a story, sometimes I like to start like in the climax, like use descriptive language to like pull them in and make it really engaging and interesting. You want the person reading it just in the first couple of sentences to be wondering like what happens next, because that will really make sure they remember your essay, because keep in mind, they read so many of these. Another really important thing is stay positive. A lot of really good essays talk about overcoming a hardship, or, you know, grappling with something, or talking about like a setback. And if you do plan to do that, just make sure to make the main focus of your essay your growth and, you know, how you became better from that situation, more so than focusing on the negative sides of that. Because again, like we really like hearing like a strong story, and it shows a lot of maturity to be able to talk about growth, and then to talk about a tough situation and leave it with like a positive impact. This one we kind of talked about before, but be unique. Really try to avoid the topics that a lot of people might write about. So some of these might be like sports injuries, volunteer experiences and trips, moving, like some other ones could be like the death of a grandparent. And the reason why so many people write about these is because they're really shaping moments in your life. And that's not to devalue the growth that can come from those experiences. But on the flip side, if an admissions officer reads a lot of essays about the same topic, it's really easy to get kind of molded together with those other ones and to blend in. So unless you can really put a unique spin on one of those experiences, it might be better to find something else that's more unique to your situation. And then I think the most important thing is to be yourself. Throughout the entire college application process, there's a lot of pressure to like present this like fancy version of yourself to colleges. And you know, there's a lot of pressure to impress. But really, like, the point of a Common App essay is to show who you are so that an admissions officer can tell, like, is this person going to be a good fit for our school? Are they going to complement the community? Is the community going to, like, complement them? So don't feel like you have to put up, like, a front of any kind. I think the best essays are the ones where people who know themselves well are honest about who they are, and they just come off as incredibly genuine and sincere, and they're really fun to read. Okay, it's gonna take a second to let me go to the next slide. Okay, there we go. This is the last part of the Common App is the courses and grades section. That's where you self-report the classes that you took in college or in high school, and then the grades you got in them, and then some information you might be asked to provide about your classes, like what level course it was, if it was standard, honors, or AP, and then the grades that you got. And then most schools will ask you to send in your official transcript as well, and that your college counselors will just do. But here's just where you self-report all of your grades. And that's the last section of the Common App. So that's all I have today. If there are any questions, I know we kind of like went over a lot.
Hey, Rosie, thank you so much. Like, that was like truly amazing. Like, I know I learned myself, and I've helped a number of students with the Common App. So like, that was truly amazing.
I'm happy to hear
And
Rosie, I wanted to just add a comment about the biggest change this year on the Common App. So those of you who have started filling out the Common application might have noticed that this year there is a question that is optional, a prompt that is optional that allows you to comment on anything unique about COVID-19 that has impacted your academics or your extracurricular activities or your life in general. It is an optional prompt. I do encourage students to consider answering it. I believe it's restricted to 250 words. And Rosie didn't encounter this prompt last year because she graduated during a year when there were not all of the difficulties that have arisen for 2020. But what I want you to think about as students is if you do decide to complete this prompt, be sure that you have something meaningful to say. Don't complete it just for the sake of responding to a question that's asked, because it is optional. But if you have had a difficult adjustment or a wonderful adjustment to online study or hybrid education in your high school, if your extracurricular activities have been affected or restricted and you've had to look for other community service type activities to replace them, or even if you've had to work extra hours to help your family out, take a part-time job, help educate your little brother or sister while they're home going to school, you should mention those things, because the question is being asked because truly colleges and universities want to know how this has impacted you as graduating seniors. So consider answering it if you can. If you don't have any impact at all and COVID has not affected you, bless you, that's good. But please feel free, if you do respond to it, to be honest and accurate about how it's impacted your life as a high school senior. And that's all I have.
I have a question.
Yes.
Where is the actual Common application? Where do we go to begin filling that out?
I Google everything, so that's going to be my answer. Is it commonapplication.org, Rosie?
Yeah, if you Google like Common App, the first search result will be their website, but I can look at this. Like,
okay. All right, thanks.
You'll also find when you do enter their website, you will be creating an account for yourself, and you will also be able to see the hundreds of partner schools that participate in the process. As Rosie said, it's really great because you can use one application to transmit a lot of information to various schools. Most of them will have supplemental requirements, but it's not like completing an entire application for every college you're interested in. A lot of the basics stay the same, and that's why the Common application is called what it is. it is common to all of these schools.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you for that question. And for everybody else who's participating, so this is your chance. If you have any questions, comments, or like anything else, or just wanted like additional clarity, you can just unmute yourself. It's pretty, I think there's 7 of us left here. You can unmute yourself and voice what you have to say. Also, since a key component, as was mentioned wonderfully by Rosie, is the personal statement and then supplemental essays. So like a key part is the essay. Diana and another staff member this past summer did a presentation on essay essentials. So I just posted the link for that YouTube video in the chat, so you can check that out. I think it's about 45 minutes long or so. So you can that's really beneficial in terms of like constructing an essay and what essay reviewers like. So if you just like a little bit of extra gravy on the biscuits that Rosie baked for you, then check out that YouTube link. Also, while I'm stalling for additional questions, I'm going to go ahead and post in the chat our digital flyers for the highly selective school sessions, as well as the FAFSA labs that are coming up. So you can kind of see, so you have that information in there. It's just taking a minute to upload.
I just tried to click on the YouTube video and it's saying it's restricted.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm glad that you tried that right now. And that explains why we don't have more views for that session. Everything should be public.
It's saying video unavailable.
Yeah, we've had about 30 people, a whopping 30 people view that. Let me try something else. Has anybody else clicked on that? Like, did you experience a similar?
I clicked on it and it took me right to the video. I didn't have any troubles with it.
Okay, I wonder if it's a permissions. Are you using your school's computer?
No, this is my own computer.
Oh, for the person who wasn't able to view it, that was your own computer?
Mm-hmm, I'm using my own computer as well.
Oh.
I'm just going to copy the link and try to get on a little later and see what happens. I'll try to get on with another instrument and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know. I tried it on a couple different devices right now where I'm not logged in, and it seems to work. But you have the College Depot email. If it doesn't work, then shoot us an email and we'll try to figure that out.
Okay.
Cool. And then, yeah, you can see the link right there to join the exploring highly selective colleges and universities. You can see at the bottom the join sessions link. So before I posted you can go to our events page and register. You can also just at the time, every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you can go to tiny.cc/C D selective, and you can join that way as well. And then the same thing for the FAFSA labs, just posted it in there. Our next one is this Saturday at 1, but you can see in that image that has the dates and times for all of the FAFSA labs.
Okay, great.
All right. Are there any other questions, or anybody else have something they want to add? Okay, wonderful. Well, yeah, you have our email. So if anything comes to mind, just reach out to us. You can also, once you have written your essays and are getting ready to submit, you can also request to have it reviewed by one of our team members. Diana is one of those people. We also have another team member who is an expert at reviewing essays. So after you have it completed, you can request that appointment, but just keep in mind that if, say, for example, the deadline that you have is, and this is just arbitrary, October 31st, you wouldn't want to email us on October 28th, the week before. So just give us at least a week in advance, and we can set that up. And you'll email the essay and then meet with that advisor, and they can kind of go over that with you. And so that's, of course, for Common App essays, or also if there's other essays that you're writing, whether it be for scholarships or something else related to college access, we can help you out. So yeah, I'm posting it in there. So I think I had it earlier, but yeah, just tiny.cc/C D request. You can request an appointment for the Common App, FAFSA. If you're having issues with your FAFSA, you can set up an appointment, or anything else related to like exploring colleges or just anything and everything. Like, we're here to help you with all things admissions, college planning, exploration, and then financial aid. So related to scholarships, grants, things of that nature. Well, Rosie, Diana, do you have anything else to add before we end the session?
I think I'm good.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. Really appreciate you joining us, and hope that we will see you at some point again in the future. Have a wonderful evening, and positive vibes with your Common application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got it.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.